After what I heard, Katie say on the speech of Professor King this morning, I don't really see what I can add. So let me perhaps emphasize one point, which is timing. Because if we look at what has happened in the field of corporate governance, well, we've seen a lot of rules, more and more rules, but have we seen less scandals? Well, I don't think so. Have we seen better environmental outcomes? I'm afraid not. Have we seen better social outcomes? Well, if I look at what's happening in my country, France, I don't think so as well. And as Katie outlined, this is taking place in a context where we see massive disruptions on the geopolitical stage and also on the technology stage. So this is not business as usual. Everybody says it's not business as usual. But have we really changed our way of thinking? I don't think so. And if you look at these different issues that we face, well, we have to pick up our priorities. And at the risk of paraphrasing Professor King this morning, I would change the title of this slide and would say that there is no healthy company without a healthy planet. And we don't have an healthy planet. I don't need to go into details and statistics on these different issues shown on the slide. But basically today we live in a world where pollution is killing 9 million people a year. If you add the people killed by pollution, if you add to that people killed by car accidents, sugar, and disruptions because we've got 75% of our land that is undermined, well, basically you add up to a number of people that is greater than what the Second World War was killing on a yearly basis. Means that we have to change. And we've got plenty of tools to change, and it's not only about corporate governance. Everybody has a role to play. What we have to solve, to my view, is a systemic issue. So today we're talking about business and the role of corporate governance, so I will emphasize on that. But it's not enough to have tools. If we use these tools in the same way as we've always did, we're not going to go any further. So I think apparently the great man actually on this picture has not said that. It's not written anywhere, but I think it's a great way of expressing what we have to think about. And we need to change our way of thinking. Otherwise, we're not going to be solving the problems we have to solve. So in terms of corporate governance, a few examples of what this could mean, how we should be thinking about this. Well, first of all, we have to find a new way of doing business, a new way to ensure the profitability and continuity of companies. And our current thinking is that we base that on a strategy that is aimed at maximizing sales. What does that mean? Well, that basically means using resources and thinking that these resources are infinite. They're not. This means burning cheap energy. That doesn't exist anymore. This means creating infinite waste. Well, the carrying capacity of the planet cannot take any more. So we've got a problem. We have to change the way we ensure the profitability and continuity of company. And in a nutshell, I think that means moving very quickly to a circular economy. We need also to redefine, and I think a lot of people have said that today, we need to redefine the way we think about responsible governance. The Sustainable Development Goals are very often quoted as a benchmark that can help us think about what is a responsible company expected to do. But there is an emerging debate that I find extremely interesting, which is that if we are to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, well, most scenarios lead us to exceed the carrying capacity of the planet. And that is why I think the Sustainable Development Goals are not enough as a benchmark. We also need to look at the work that the Stockholm Resilience think tank has been doing on the planetary boundaries, because these planetary boundaries are limiting our ability to achieve the SDGs. And we need to combine both if we are to achieve responsible governance and change our business models. And the next slide seems to be stuck somewhere. Well, a new boardroom culture. That is essential if we are to change corporate governance. We talked about diversity. We talked about gender diversity, and I agree with everything that has been said. But I think I'm missing one point that has not been discussed maybe sufficiently. In terms of board culture, what we need is people who think differently. Not only who have a different experience, a different skill set, and a different gender, and come from different backgrounds. We need to have people who have courage, people who dare to challenge what is being said. Otherwise, a board will be dysfunctional. That's easy to say. It's a little bit more difficult to achieve. So that means that in combination with thinking about the composition of the board, we also have to think about how we select board members, how we can ensure that board members have this different capacity to think in different terms, like Einstein apparently was saying. We need to adapt the reward mechanism on the board. We need to change the board processes and roles. And what I find a very interesting thing is the proposal that Professor King is making of having a chief value officer. Yes, that is a different way of thinking about the issues that we have. If we continue having boards that revolve around the CEO and the CFO and that carry on a business as usual mode with a slightly different spin, we're not going to resolve the problem we have to resolve. Now, this is a series of recommendations that are a small extract from a thought leadership paper that we at Accountancy Europe will be publishing shortly. And there are about 30 recommendations that we will be very happy to share with you. They're not really recommendations, they're provocations, I would say, to help people think in new terms about what is the role of the board. But it's not only about the board. And as I said, this is a systemic issue. And I think policymakers and regulators also have to think in different terms. And when it comes to preparing new regulation, they also have to think in terms of outcomes, not only in terms of ticking the box and have to put nice words on papers. They have to think about the outcomes. They have to think about how they influence behavior. They have to think in terms of enforcement, a word that not everybody likes. But regulation that is not enforced doesn't serve any purpose. And it will be very important moving forward. We have a great set of companies that are really innovating, that are really trying to work on this agenda, and that are achieving, I think, or making progress on the road towards sustainable prosperity. But if we don't assure that these companies operate on a level playing field, if we don't move on rapidly to regulation and to properly enforced regulation, what we are in fact doing is not encouraging companies that are doing well and encouraging companies that are not doing so well to continue not doing so well. So we do have to change on that front as well. Now, if you want to continue discussing in details these issues, I would be delighted to welcome you in Brussels on the 26th of June. Sorry for taking the floor for a small advertisement, but I thought I would share with you that we will continue this conversation in Brussels on the 26th of June, and I very much look forward to seeing you all. Now, we don't have a lot of time to act. If you remember the Brundtland report that first talked about sustainable development, that was in 1987. If you look at the report from the Denis Meadow that was delivered to the Club of Rome, and that very clearly outlined the limits to our current model, the report was entitled The Limits to Growth. That dates back from 1972. Have we changed since then? No. If you read the IPCC report on climate change from last October, we basically have between 3 and 10 years to act. Otherwise, we'll be having fun, but like on this cartoon. Thank you very much.